I was the national sales director, and I ran San Diego, and I was the top sales rep in our company. And I was trying to be a really good dad and a really good husband. And I was a bishop at my church and had all these things. But the thing that really got me was that I was a sinner and a bishop. I'm on Team Jesus, but I love that people are on Team Allah. And that's who they are, each division. I got 6th in the country.
6th in the country?
Oh, actually, top 6. I didn't wrestle for 5th and 6th. Maybe I was 5th. But I'm training for the Worlds right now. I'm going to go to Croatia. I'm going to take my whole family, represent the United States of America as a 42-year-old. And I actually have become super fond of Muslims. Dude, Muslims they're going to heaven, man. I just lost $200,000 in an investment last week.
Last week?
Last week. I got an email saying that $200,000 is now gone.
I've yelled at God, I've sworn at God, and I know he can handle it because emotion is communication, right? And we hurt. And so I think it really is God can handle swearing at him. Yeah, you and I, back in like the mid 2000s, you were selling Dish Network, I was installing Dish Network. You were sweating on the doorsteps, and I was crawling.
Sweating on the roof.
I was inside attics. I was in crawl spaces, like finding raccoon carcasses, snakes, black widows.
Good times.
Dude, I learned how to work really hard from those summers. Like I remember I just didn't have a choice. It's like I gotta just all my personal preferences of what I would like, I have to throw it out the window and just go to work. And I credit those summers for like the success of my life.
Yeah.
Of
totally.
sticking things out and just like putting my head down.
Yeah. Same. Those were such development, like important years, young. I mean, we're in our 20s, right?
Yeah.
Mid-20s, figuring out how to like work and get stuff done. Like so crucial and important years for me, for sure.
And you've been doing that. You're still doing it. Like I stopped in 2012 and I went into music and other stuff, but you're now chief
VP of sales
for Legacy Power, which is a growing company. And what's cool is I know a lot of the people from those days are still doing it.
Yeah.
You guys are killing it. And now you live in San Diego, which is an awesome place to live.
Yeah.
And so what does your day-to-day look like now?
So I mean, my roles changed a bunch. I used to sell a ton as like my normal sales. So since we started, I sold alarm systems or satellites for 3 years, door to door, and then alarm systems door to door 3 years. And then I moved to San Diego to start some businesses with my brother. I was just out. I didn't want to do that anymore. And I paid my tuition to the School of Hard Knocks. We lost some money on some businesses, and then I sold LED lighting, and then I sold a business networking group, and then got back into door-to-door sales and solar like 10 and a half years ago. So I don't always hit the doors, but I still go out and hit doors. But I do a lot of training for our company. I travel around and do trainings, help bring on new teams, help develop leaders and grow leaders. And I'm kind of a Swiss Army knife. Wherever there's a need, I go there, and it may not be there forever. It may just be for a little bit, and then I move on to the next project, whatever that is.
Yeah. So do you like having it be fluid of what you're doing?
Yeah.
Do you like that flexibility of?
Yeah. I love that flexibility. I still enjoy getting out on the doors. I took a brand new rep 2 days ago. His very first day, we knocked on a door in the middle of the day, got him excited, set the appointment for later that night, came back later that night, signed him up. And it's a commission sales and door-to-door sales, but commission sales in general is an interesting and fun thing. There was no money, and now there's money coming just because I was willing to go talk to somebody.
Yeah.
Like I'm kind of creating money out of nowhere, even though that customer probably will go solar sometime. I just happened to be there, and I was able to convince them that mine is better than anybody else's. And you know what I mean? But that's a really cool thing that I love about sales, is that you can kind of create your own destiny to a certain extent, right?
Yeah. What's misunderstood about this industry, about door-to-door sales? What's a huge misconception?
I mean, people that get their doors knocked on, they're worried that we're just scumbags and not good people, and like, why would you bug somebody at their house? Like, well, you're at your house, and I'm actually talking to you about something that involves your house. This is actually the best place for me to talk to you about your house.
Yeah, good point.
So I think from homeowners, they get bothered that somebody would have the audacity to come and knock on their door and talk to them. Other people are like, it doesn't bother them at all. And other people welcome it. Like, that's cool. Hey, what do you got? Tell me all about it, And those are your favorite customers, but that can sometimes be the bad rap. that they're not good people, but there's a lot of really good people.
Yeah, for sure. And making a living is a noble cause.
Yeah. Yeah.
When people knock on my door now, I have such a different, well, not different because before I owned a home, I was doing this or going into people's homes and installing dish network and security systems. But I just have such a soft spot in my heart for these young boys. Well, I'm 42. They're not that in their 20s, like knocking on the door. I'm like, oh man, I appreciate it. I don't need it. I'll talk to them and treat them like a human instead of like
water. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it is so tough to knock on doors. I served a mission for my church, and that was one of the hardest things I've ever done. Is just like you get used to it, but knocking on a door and feeling like you're bugging someone. And so, dude, the grit and the mettle that you get from doing that over and over has obviously paid off in your life. Yeah. You seem like you're enjoying your life. Yeah. You're full of light. Yeah. And that's awesome. So it's so good to connect with you. When you were little, what did you think you wanted to do when you grew up?
I wanted to be a doctor.
What kind?
I really love helping people.
Okay.
And I wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to be a pediatrician because I love kids. And then I'm colorblind. And I thought it's probably not going to be a good idea if I need to see certain colors. I actually am scared to cook because I don't know when the meat turns from red to brown. Okay. I don't know when the chicken turns from pink to white. So if I'm cooking steak, it's like, well done. I don't want anybody to die here. I'm burning this thing. So with my wife, as long as she's willing to make the food, I'll clean it. I'll do all the cleanup. Like that's the arrangement that we have because she's like, we can get a meat thermometer and there's ways around it, but I'm still like, I don't want to kill anybody.
That is so funny.
So anyway, I wanted to be a doctor, and then I thought the colorblind thing may not work out that well, and then I was like, well, maybe I'll be an eye doctor because that's easier. And then I saw some surgeries, and I was like, no, I can't do it. Even though I didn't need to be a surgeon, I would have to go through those rotations, and I was like, I can't. Yeah. I blame it on empathy. Like if I see somebody getting cut open, I'm like, that's your arm. Ow, that's my arm. That hurts, like that. So I realized you don't have to be a doctor to help people. Sales is also a noble thing. I'm helping people, whatever, as long as my product's a good product, But anyway, that's what I wanted to be when I was growing up. I got to tell you too. So you brought up the door knocking and religion. Mm-hmm. So I just went out with some missionaries. I served a mission also. And
Where'd you serve?
New Zealand.
Oh my gosh, I'm so jealous.
Loved it. Yeah. Where did you go?
Pittsburgh.
That's a great place.
This is the thing. I was so bummed because a kid in my neighborhood got called there a month before me. And I was like, I want to announce someplace unique and cool. I want to go to like Iceland or something. And I got called to Pittsburgh. And then I remember like driving through. Have you been to Pittsburgh?
Yeah, yeah.
So I remember like driving through
Loved it.
The mountain. There's like this causeway or this tunnel into the mountain. And then it opens up to the city. I'm like, whoa, this looks like.
This is cool.
I would never guess Pittsburgh would be cool. I always envisioned like steel mills and dirt and stuff. But it was like a beautiful, incredible city. And there's so many Eastern Europeans there. So it was like European culture. And it was wild.
It's a unique place.
It's really unique. But New Zealand, I'm obsessed with Lord of the Rings. As you can see, I've got these books here.
Oh, yeah.
I know you probably didn't go like see those places. Or maybe you did. Did you
We've been back multiple times.
Did you go to like where they filmed The Shire?
Yeah, yeah. I've been to Middle Earth.
Wow. Yeah. How was that? Tell me about it.
So awesome. Yeah, beautiful. Everything you see, it's such a beautiful place. The great thing about New Zealand is the people are even better than the land.
The accent is phenomenal.
The accent's phenomenal. Yeah. But we didn't have a boy. I have 4 daughters. We were going to name one of our kids Hayden because of an experience we had. And this is a good Christian guy, right? That we had this experience. And maybe this is like too much of a tangent for the show. I don't know or whatever, but there's this place called Hot Water Beach in New Zealand.
Hot Water Beach?
Hot Water Beach, one of the most unique places where at low tide, you can take some shovels and you dig down and there's some natural hot springs that happen right on the beach.
Hence the name.
Hot Water Beach.
There you go.
So you dig your own hot springs and then you sit in it while the ocean's right there. It's like so cool.
Okay.
My wife and I were there. We were going south. We get in, we didn't have shovels. Somebody had already done one. We were like, they're not here anymore. Let's jump in there one. And then some surfers came in, a husband and his wife. And within 5 minutes, the guy, his name is Hayden, we're talking. They're like, well, where are you going? I'm like, oh, we're going south. We're going to this place. And they're like, oh, we're from there. And they said, we're going north. Him and his wife were going north. And they're like, well, do you have a place to stay? And we were like, well, not yet. We were just going to find a hotel or something like that. We'll just kind of figure it out when we're on the way. And the guy looks over at his wife, doesn't say anything. And she's like, And he's like, well, do you want to stay at our place? It's just outside of town. And it's like the cutest little cottage. You guys will absolutely love it. Like there's a spare key. You guys could totally stay at our place. Like you should just go and stay at our place. We won't charge you anything. Just go. Within 5 minutes.
5 minutes
of meeting these perfect strangers
at
Hot Water Beach, this guy, because that's how New Zealanders are, offered his house. And then we get to his house at like 11 o'clock at night. The spare key's not there. And where I'm searching everywhere, and he's like, oh my gosh, dude, I feel so bad. Let me call you right back. He calls his parents down in town, and he says, all right, you can go stay at my parents' house. They're going to leave the front door open. You just walk right in. There's a picture of me. Your room's right to the right. And I'm like,
this is so weird.
Is this cool, or is this weird? Is this good, or is this bad? Are we getting set up here?
Is your wife like just...
No, we're adventurous, and it's just her and me. We're like going for it. Like we felt comfortable. It felt fine. And then we go into this person's house. We wake up the next morning. We're like... We go in the shower, and then we come out, and it was one of the nicest houses I'd been in New Zealand. They were rich kiwi fruit farmers.
Okay.
And they were like, hey, how long are you staying for? You can stay as long as you want. And they just were like so open to, they didn't even meet us at the beach, the people that we were having breakfast with. We woke up in their house. Yeah. The people there are so good. They're so good. They just are good.
So you would have named your son Hayden because of this.
We were going to name our son Hayden after Hayden Reed that was going to let us stay at his cottage that ended up staying at his parents' house. And
yeah, crazy
because of that experience. But anyway, so I went out with the missionaries and knocked some doors recently, and I absolutely loved it.
Tell me why.
It was so fun. I'm a professional door knocker. I've knocked doors, I 6-year stint, then 3 years off, and then 10.5-year stint. So I'm professional at knocking at doors and connecting with people. And it was so much fun because the most important thing isn't selling solar. The most important thing is having people feel the love of Jesus and the love of God in their heart. Mm-hmm. That's the most important thing. And as a missionary, I felt like I had the weight of the world on my shoulder when I knocked doors. So when they were telling me no, I was like, no, but listen, this is eternal happiness. Like, and I felt it.
Yeah.
As an adult now, it's still the most important thing in the world, but the consequences were a lot less for me. Like, hey, let's go have some fun talking to people, and let's go invite them to Jesus, to come hear about Jesus. And have you guys ever knocked the doors on the street right by where the church is? No, we never have. Like, let's start there.
Like right around the church?
Right by the church. Yeah. And the first person we talked to was this nice lady, Yvonne. And I said, have you ever been over there? Like from her house, every single day, she sees the church. No, I've never been over there. Well, hey, I'm Ashton. These are the missionaries. We want to invite you to come to church with us sometime because it's so close. Do you believe in God? No, not really. Well, would you be open to coming and learning a little bit about it? Yeah, maybe. But we're leaving and da-da-da-da-da. Anyway, we ended up sending a time for the missionaries to come back. This lady's atheist, but she said she's willing to try. How cool is that?
That's really cool.
We go knock on this lady's door, and she is open to, all right, I'm willing to listen to what you have to say. And all because my professional skills of knocking doors, and the missionaries are doing it too, right? Yeah. But they wanted to learn from me, like, hey, they're having us do this more. Can you help us? I'm like, yes. I consider myself really, one of the best in the world at this because I've done it so long and I've beat on my craft. Let me help you and help these people because these people need it. And we had a lot. Most people told us no, obviously, but we gave some scriptures out and we invited Yvonne, and they went and met with Yvonne, and anyway,
dude, that's awesome.
So cool. She hasn't come to church yet, but it was a neat experience to like put my profession to work for good for God.
Dude, that's awesome.
And I try to do that with my work as well, but like that was a neat experience. So,
very cool. Before we started talking, you said that you're on Team Jesus. Is that what you said? Is something about
yeah.
Tell me, I'm interested to know, because I can tell you're on fire, dude. You're bringing the Spirit, and you're like obviously very unashamed that you're a Christian and love Jesus.
Yeah.
What are some experiences in your life that helped you get close to Christ? Like, why are you on Team Jesus?
That's a good question. I mean, there's a lot there I could talk about. I was asked to be a bishop for my church a few years ago, kind of a young bishop of a congregation that was like young single adults. Yeah. So 18 to 30-year-olds, real important time of their life, single, they're, thinking about college and career and who to marry and all those things. And I was only 33 when they asked me to be their bishop. So I was
33,
like not very far past where they were, you know.
Yeah.
But I had a wife and a couple of kids, and every time, and so part of my role was like some confession stuff. Every time somebody would come in to talk to me about the things that they were doing that they knew that God didn't like or whatever, and some would argue like God loves you all the time, so there's nothing that he doesn't like. And he knocked over the tables. Jesus knocked over some tables at the temple because he didn't like that.
Yeah.
You know? So that's okay that there's some things that Jesus doesn't like. And they would come in and talk to me, and we'd work through some stuff together. Every single time I had two experiences. One, no judgment. And some of the stuff was like a little strange. Most of it normal, but zero judgment. I never was like, you did what? It never crossed my mind. And the second thing was all love. And I'm a sinner. My heart, during that time of my life, I was really busy. I was admitted to the hospital for a little bit, and it was just stress. And I was the national sales director, and I ran San Diego, and I was the top sales rep in our company. And I was trying to be a really good dad and a really good husband. And I was a bishop at my church and had all these things. But the thing that really got me was that I was a sinner and a bishop, because I always looked at my bishops as like they didn't sin. My youth bishop, when I was a youth, I don't think that guy sins. He told me that he sins. I've asked him since, but I don't believe him. You know, maybe his sin is that he's lying to me right now. Yeah. That's the only thing that he's got. And then the bishop I had before I was asked to be a bishop, I was like, that guy doesn't sin either. So I was a sinner and a bishop. And some people would come in and confess my favorite sin to me. And all that I ever felt was love, like an overwhelming amount of love. And so I thought, dude, why am I any different? I'm no different. If that's all that God is having me feel for this person, if I'm supposed to be representing God or representing Jesus in this moment, and all that Jesus wants me to feel for this person is love, then he feels that for me too whenever I mess up too, right? And kind of just being on that, like, that this is a Jesus thing. And I love the church I go to, but I actually love when anybody goes to any church. And I actually have become super fond of Muslims. Dude, Muslims they're going to heaven, man. The Muslims that are devout, they are some of the best human beings. They've got a phrase that it's either inshallah or mashallah. Are you familiar with either?
I've been to Turkey, and I'm going to second what you're saying. I had just gone through all of Europe. Like, I used to travel before I was married.
Yeah.
And when I went to Turkey, they were the kindest.
The best.
They were so Christ-like. I mean, they were. It totally changed my paradigm because we're so propagandized to look at different cultures and religions. So I second what you're saying. I don't know what, and I don't know their language or what you're about to say.
So inshallah or mashallah, I want to say it's mashallah, that when they had it explained to me, they said what that means. They'll say that sometimes as you're like, how's things going? And you talk about life or whatever, and they'll say mashallah. And it means God's will play out with no envy, no jealousy, no anything. I want all of this for you. And as long as it's God's will, it will happen. And it's just like charity in the purest form, and a pure desire of like, I want all the good in the world for you, mashallah. And I love it.
This is a common term they say to each other? A common
term that they'll say to each other. Yeah, if somebody's, and inshallah, one is I wish I remembered which one it is, but one is like, that was God's will. And the other one is, if that's God's will, I totally want that for you. With no envy or jealousy, or, because sometimes people are like, yeah, dude, hope it works out. And they're really like, oh, but, kind of, because then you'll be beating me and you'll be more than me. And they're like, no, man, you go conquer all of that. So anyway, anybody that's devout, and I want to know more about Buddhists because I don't know a whole lot about Buddhism, but I'm on Team Jesus, but I love that people are on Team Allah. and that's who they are. As long as they're all in on that. Where the world, I feel, is missing things is that it's cool to not love God or trendy or whatever. And it's like, no, man, I don't care what religion you are. Growing up with some core values and principles and all of that stuff has been so healthy for me. And maybe the church I go to is wrong. And if that's the case, so be it. But I can't think of a better place to raise my kids, to have faith. Like I walk in. I just lost $200,000 in an investment last week.
Last week,
I got an email saying that $200,000 is now gone.
Oh my gosh!
And this is I've shared this with now 2 people, my wife and one other person. So I'm sharing it with your audience right now. Well, not that, but I've shared the 200,000, but that means that over the last 5 years, I've lost $500,000 in investments. That's a lot of money, man.
That's so much money.
And I consider myself a smart guy, and I did research. It wasn't like I was just like, here's, whatever. Like I did all that stuff, and sometimes it works out and sometimes it doesn't work out.
Wait, hold on, let's back up because that's, we're just, Okay. So you get the email. Do you get a pit in the stomach? Do you get
I was fired up. I was pretty fired. I wasn't yelling. I wasn't whatever, but I got the email. It started out not so good, so I didn't read it. And then I was with my wife and we read it. I read it out loud with her, like right before bed. And I was like, you gotta be kidding me. That's not what we needed right now, and luckily it was, hopefully people invest with money that they don't need right now.
Yeah.
Right. So it didn't affect my day-to-day life, which is good. If you're investing in something that's going to affect your day-to-day life, that's not a good idea.
Have you had past experiences where your day-to-day life has been affected? I don't even know. I'm not even asking financially. I'm just asking in your life, like what are some of what's a low point where you were affected, where if you weren't sleeping?
I haven't had many times where I've not been able to sleep.
That's incredible.
I had a health issue once. My heart was this was post when I was admitted to the hospital. My heart was just acting really weird.
What is acting weird? Like
it just
fluttering?
Was it just was like, I don't know, fluttering. It was just, it felt strange.
Yeah.
And as when you're young, you never really think about dying. You think that I'll die someday.
Yeah.
But you never.
It's not real.
It was, again, this was only a handful of years ago. It was the first time where when I was going to bed, I thought, what if I don't wake up? And I was like, whoa. I've never faced my mortality head on like that. Like, what if I don't wake up? Have I kissed my wife? Have I made sure that she knows I love her and my kids know that I love them? And what would my legacy be? And I started kind of going down that spiral. So that was an interesting time. But my low points have been, just barely learning that I've now lost $500,000 over the span of 5 years. That feels really low.
Yeah.
But also with my faith in God, I'm like, he got me to, that was all his money anyway.
That's cool.
That wasn't my money.
Do you view your resources? Are you a steward? Like, this is what I love, the stewardship principle. Like, my body, like I'm bought with a price.
Yeah.
Sure, I have stewardship of my body, but Christ paid for this.
Yeah.
My time, my talents, my energy. Do you view your resources as God's?
So
like how do you,
yeah and no, and I still have some investments, and we've borrowed against some of our stock. We have a stock that I have a lot of stock in one business. I did the wrong thing and put it all in one spot.
Okay.
And we borrowed against it, and I've stressed sometimes that, oh man, the stock went way down and it went way up, and now that's good, but now it's gone way down. And after, this was probably only like 2 or 3 months ago, I was like, you know what? That's actually God's stock. Why am I so stressed about that? I shouldn't be so stressed about that. That's God's stock. And so when I now pull out my stock app, I say either out loud or in my brain, how's God's stock doing today?
Does it work? I mean, you feel better about it?
Sometimes it makes it so that, because it's gone down again, it makes it so that I'm like, what's his anyway? Like, it's okay, whatever. Mm-hmm. I just got to continue living, and I just got to continue being me. And my nature is to be a real positive guy, mm-hmm. right? My nature, that's a lot of like my nature. And I attribute a lot of that to my family, to my upbringing, to what God gave me mm-hmm. from the start. And then my faith. Like I know that all things will turn for my good because God said so. And I couldn't go any lower or any worse or anything than what Jesus went through. So like, what do I really have to worry about? He's felt my pains. He's felt my everything already. So why am I worried? But it's hard not to, right?
It's
Our
so
natural
hard.
man is like, hey, life's hitting you in the face.
I think that's the only antidote though, is the trust in God. Like we're not going to have anything worse than Job happen. We're not going to have anything worse than Christ happen. He's already descended below. I'm sure there's future pain that will come into our lives.
Yeah.
But with God, he works together for those who love him. That's one of the scriptures that like we quote on the podcast.
Yeah.
It's like, so yeah, it's an amazing principle. It's super tough when you're going through those things, but also when you are prepared, when you have that relationship, like in my life, when I have that relationship and something hard comes again, it's like, yeah, he's already pulled me through many, many times. And I know that I can trust in him because he's done that.
Right.
And I know that he's a loving creator and he's going to pull me through this one, and it's going to suck and be painful. But I'm so grateful to have that knowing or that faith and that trust.
It's an anchor.
It's an anchor. It's totally priceless. It's easy for you and I to talk on a podcast like it's going to be okay. But in those dark moments, there is something that's so true and graspable about God backing you up in those hard times. And you have to go through the hard times to know that. And that's why when people have strong relationships with Jesus, it's because they've hit rock bottom, or they have many experiences where they've seen Christ lift them up through those hard times. Yeah. And that's what's so beautiful about the gospel.
Yeah. Yeah.
And being on Team Jesus.
Yeah. Being on Team Jesus, man. I just spent last night with a friend that came out as gay, and he had like the love of God. What you just said, it made me think of an experience he had. He was like, he's married, mm-hmm. has kids.
This sounds hard.
But has always kind of known that he was gay. Like he was like, from a kid, I knew that. But I wanted to do what Jesus wanted me to do, and I kind of socialized some of these things. That I had a gay uncle, and my dad said, he's never going to make it to heaven. And okay, well, I don't want that. And he's had some different things. And at one of his lowest points, he told me that he was yelling at God, "F you! Why would you do this? Why would you let this happen to me? The situation is horrible. My wife, poor me, poor my kids. Why would this ever go on?" After being done yelling at God, like the next millisecond, he said he was just filled with love. And he loves God, and he's going to continue to love God, and he's going to have a little different lifestyle now than he has had before. But he was like, I knew that God knew me and loved me already, but to have that in my deepest, darkest, I'm yelling at you, I'm cussing at you, mm-hmm. to have my whole body consumed with just love was like, okay, that means that you can continue to be with me even though I'm going through this hard thing, mm-hmm. And so I think he's there. There's the hard part with when we come against challenges and stuff is remembering that, because sometimes you get so in the woods and it's so in your face that you forget to ask God for help, and not just ask God for help, but like mean it, mm-hmm. right? I can say my prayers and be like, God, this is really stressful. And it's a little bit of a shopping list. Like, hey, could you please help me with this and this and this and this, but not like deep down, like having the faith that he actually will hear that and do something about it. Right? My prayers are making it to the ceiling, maybe. They're not making it all the way. And the great thing about God is that he knows what we need before we ask for it. Mm-hmm. Prayer is really me just trying to align my will with his. That's all prayer.
That's all it is.
That's all prayer is. Because he already knows.
Yeah.
You know? And I think he appreciates prayers that are full of gratitude, and because he already knows what you need, whether you say it or don't say it, right? And but when you say it and then have faith that, okay, this actually really sucks. My life is falling apart, or this relationship's falling apart, or whatever the case may. I just got fired from my job. My kid's yelling at me. I've got a new teenager. I don't know if you got any teenagers yet.
Yeah, I do.
I got a teenager, right? Okay, so now there's some more of the teenage stuff going on, and how do I deal with all that stuff? But to actually like not only know it, but to then deep down believe that, yeah, he's going to respond, and he's going to, because he loves you, having the faith. But that's where it gets cloudy and hard, right? Because life hits you and it doesn't stop. And so unless you stop and remember, oh, I'm on Team Jesus. So as long as me and Jesus are in this, we win every time.
How do you teach someone? How would you explain someone to pray effectively? Or like if someone's like, yeah, I don't feel my prayers are being heard, and like what are some things you've learned that you could help someone understand about ceiling breaking prayers?
When my prayers, when I say it, you say it from your heart. When I legit, sometimes when we pray, I'm praying in my mind, and the words are coming across my mind, and I'm up here. And other times when I pray, it's like written on my heart, right? And I think of sometimes I'll give somebody a blessing, and I'll feel like things are coming across my mind to say. But the ones that really matter, and it's kind of like a typewriter type thing. And in my prayers, I'm not, it's not a typewriter kind of experience, but if you think of it like that way, if it's just here, if it's only just here, because I'm stressed and I'm worried and I've got all these things going on that is hard and difficult and challenging, and it's all here and it never makes it down here, then it has a harder time getting up to God. So as a typewriter, think of like, okay, I'm going to type this out on my heart. And if it really does come from my heart, from my soul, then that's different. And it's easy to just, again, I think people get in the habit, I get in the habit of just saying, I say my prayers every morning, every night.
Yeah.
It's just a checklist kind of thing, but it's all up here. It's all cerebral. It's not deep down anywhere.
Dude, that is such a beautiful metaphor. It's so simple. Like if going through your mind and going through your repetitious sayings that we all have, as opposed to letting it come from the heart where you're feeling it. And what I love about that is the heart is where pride needs to be stripped from, right? It's like the heart needs to be contrite and open. And if the prayer can come from the open, willing heart, that's where God hears both prayers.
Yeah.
But that's where you change if it comes from your heart, right? Because that's the whole point, is for us to change and to learn to unite with God's will. It's not for God to come in and rescue us every time. It's for us, like the wind and the storms we have to grow. But if our heart is malleable and open, then we can get strengthened from that instead of asking like the shopping cart vending machine God type thing.
Right.
That's so cool. It makes sense. And I like that visual now that I'm going to take in my life. So I appreciate that.
Yeah.
I love this conversation so far. I want to get into your wrestling.
Yeah,
dude. I know it's like it's a complete right turn, but you're ripped, man.
Thanks.
You are taking care of your body, and you told me that you're like doing old man wrestling.
Yeah.
First of all, you don't look like an old man, but we're the same age. We both graduated in the year 2000.
Yeah.
We're both 42. You look a lot better than me. Now, what are you doing, and what's your wrestling? Yeah, tell me about this wrestling stuff.
So I wrestled in high school and college. I actually wrestled since second grade. And
I didn't even know you could do that, like competitively.
Yeah, competitively.
Where did you grow up?
Kansas, Montana, Utah.
Okay. Is there nothing else to do in Kansas? You just start wrestling.
You start wrestling. Second grade? Kansas actually got a really good kids wrestling program, like overall. Yeah.
Okay.
Because you wrestle hay bales and and people, but I wrestled all through high school and college, and then I kind of stopped, and I got married, and we just kind of living our life. And then I've always loved it. It's always been a passion of mine. It's what I did the best at. You may not believe this, but when we were seniors in high school, I was the MVP of the state Deseret News.
You were
amazing football player of the year. Me and Cameron Jensen, stud of a guy.
Yeah,
wait, he went on to play pro.
Yeah, he's a pro.
And I'm like 5'7" and 3/4. But
what position did you play?
Outside linebacker and running back.
Cool.
And I helped my team win state, and anyway, had some really, really neat experiences. But I was too small to go on anywhere in football, right? Mm-hmm. No one's going to take a little 5'7", 3/4 white guy to go anywhere. So wrestling was my passion, and I loved wrestling. And then I saw some friends like a few years ago that were doing this old man wrestling. It's Masters Division wrestling.
What's the age range for that? What's the age range? I'm curious.
In the United States, it's 26, and then there's one that can go all the way up to like 80 or something like that.
What do you mean
26 years old to 80 years old?
That's the whole.
So, but then it's broken down into 5 different divisions. So this year, I was wrestling people between 34 and 42. So I was the old guy. My birthday's in January, so I was the oldest guy of my age division. I got 6th in the country.
6th in the country?
Oh, actually, top 6. I didn't wrestle for 5th and 6th. Maybe I was 5th, but I lost right before the 3rd place match.
I mean, you're ripped. You look like a wrestler. I believe it.
Yeah.
That's incredible. In the country.
It was fun. Yeah, it was super fun.
Were you the oldest in that age bracket?
I was the oldest in that age bracket. And something that I've done the last few years, I mean, on the health side, I've tried to create big goals that would stretch me so that I would stay fit. And I kind of first started like 4 years ago. I moved into a new house and I put a pull-up bar in, and I was like, I want to do 50 pull-ups in a row. I'd never heard anybody do that. I don't know where that came from, but I started kind of training towards that. And I was like, well, it's going to be harder to do pull-ups if I'm fat. So I started eating healthier, and I did all these things. But anyway, I wrestled at the U.S. Open. A guy that I beat 2 years ago went on to Worlds, and he got 2nd in the world. And I was like,
I've already beat that guy.
I'm basically 2nd in the world, And I tore my labrum at that event, and I was like, you know what? I'm going to bulk up. I've never really bulked up, but the weight class I was at, I was like smaller. People were cutting 15 pounds to make weight, and I was like already 3 pounds underweight. Wow. So I had a physical disadvantage. So I've been trying to bulk up, and it's worked. I put on some muscle mass. I'm not as heavy as I would like to be, but I'm training for the Worlds right now. I'm going to go to Croatia. I'm going to take my whole family, represent the United States of America as a 42-year-old.
So did you already qualify because you were top 6 in the nation?
Yep. So I'm going to Croatia.
How do you train for that? Like weekly, monthly?
So I separated my AC joint in my shoulder. Actually 2 Mondays before the U.S. Open started.
Did you still go?
But I still wrestled. Yeah. Ooh. I just had him like tape it up. I actually taped up both sides so people didn't know that I was hurt.
Do people? I guess they would use.
And the old guys were not really like doing that, but like normally you would be like, all right, there's a tape on his elbow. All right, I'm gonna. Wow. He's hurt, right? And you don't like try to hurt them, but there is a weaker side, so I'm gonna try to go on that side. Anyway, but I wrestled still with that AC joint separation, so I'm still recovering from.
Is that a surgery?
No, okay. It's just it'll heal over time.
Okay.
So I'm almost out of that, but I'll go wrestle at least once a week, probably starting next month, and then I'll turn that into 2 times a week, and then maybe 3.
Oh, is this at a club? Like, where are you wrestling?
Yeah, like I'm actually the only clubs are like high school kids, so I'm wrestling high school kids. And at first I was like, dude, I want to wrestle high school kids. Like, what if I lose? I don't want to lose to a high school. I'm 40 years old.
Have you lost?
And then I was like, that's stupid. I should try to find the best person in the room. Doesn't matter their age, because then I'll get better.
Yeah.
And so I've wrestled them, and I've lost to some high school kids.
Wow. Thanks for admitting that.
Yeah. So I'm training for that, and it's a lot of fun. I don't know what other
Dude,
things.
I'm just impressed. I think that's really cool to be our age. I don't even feel 42, which is weird. I feel like I'm still in my 20s.
Yeah.
But I feel better than ever just with lifestyle changes, just like you said, eating cleaner and having goals and working out.
Exercise.
And, I think that's an important part of being a father and being a good member of society is to have a fit body, mind, spirit. I mean, that's what's going to change. That's what's going to change in setting that example and giving other people the courage to like do really hard things, like go to worlds and wrestle
Yeah,
and like,
yeah.
and reignite old passions that you had as a kid. Like those curiosities, I think are really important for us to be fulfilled. Like we're all creative.
Agreed.
We all have these really cool, unique things, and they should be explored and celebrated.
Yeah.
And God loves all the weird stuff that we do.
Yeah.
Like he's cool with it. And I love that you talked about that God can handle us yelling at him. I've yelled at God, I've sworn at God, and I know he can handle it. And I haven't had like where there's like a huge outpouring of love in that moment. But it's like when my kids yell at me and they show their emotion and they're really frustrated, and you just love them because emotion is communication, right? And we hurt. And so I think it really is God can handle swearing at him.
So yeah.
And I love that.
Dude, let me, you took a right turn. Let me take another right turn.
Yeah.
If you'll let me.
Please.
So I've been thinking about our time, and I wanted to share an experience that I had at a recent like men's retreat.
Tell me about it.
And then kind of talk a little bit about that, but, and how I'm trying to live my life. But I went to this men's retreat. I am trying to always get better. Right. And that's something that I don't know if I think that probably came from my parents, but I am always trying to improve. I think there's something wholesome about always trying to get better. And I think Jesus wants us to have that too, right? To always get better and not be stagnant. So I went to this men's retreat knowing that it was going to be different than other retreats that I'd been to. Most retreats I'd been to, most everybody's Christian, and you learn good principles, and they'll have speakers come in, or you'll do different things, but most of the demographic is pretty similar. I went to this retreat and didn't know that I was going to be a total minority as a Christian. They had a table. They were like, bring an item that represents spirituality to you. And I brought my scriptures, and I put my item on the table, and I looked around the table, and there was only like 2 other sets of scriptures. And I was like,
What else was there? I mean, I'm interested to know.
There was dream catchers. There was some pipes. There was some crystals. There was some, just other objects, other things. Anyway, at the very first, they had us then bring in a different object, and you had to introduce everybody. You went up there and you had to pick an object on the table that you liked and say why you liked it. And why you connect with it. And then whoever's item that was would then come up and say, this is my item, and this is who I am, and this is why I brought this item, right? I brought my scriptures in again because I was like, that's a big part of who I am. I'm a God guy. I'm a Team Jesus guy. So I bring my scriptures in there, and somebody, one of the only other Christians there, picked that up, and he's like, I was raised with the Bible, and I love the Bible, and so that's why I brought this on. Whose is this? And I went up there, and I felt an immense amount of judgment when I went up there, and it was weird.
For who?
For being Christian. And
you felt you were being judged?
I felt like I was being judged. Okay. And the eyeballs, and I actually later had a guy come up to me and say, I was totally judging you in that moment. And I was like, whoa, it's coming from you. I didn't think it was coming from you.
You felt it?
Yeah, I felt it hard.
That's interesting.
And a lot of the guys were spiritual, but not, and knew there was a higher power, but didn't say it was God or Jesus or anything. They just were that. And anyway, I got up there and I said, I just love Jesus. I'm on Team Jesus. I'm all about Jesus. Like, I am actually trying to live like Jesus would live every day. That's how I'm trying to live. I'm on his team, and he's on my team. And that's who I am. Like, every day I want to be that. And we went through the retreat, and it was really cool. I had a gay guy come up to me at that retreat and was like, hey man, I just love that you're so passionate about being on Team Jesus. That I see it in you. I feel it from you. I'm not Christian, but I love that you are. And I was like, dude, thank you, man. Thank you for loving that for me. And I talk about that. My brother has had some challenges with some religion stuff. And he's like, you know what, man, I'm just Team Jesus. If it's Jesus, I'm in. If it's too organized, too whatever, I don't know. And I'm like, all right, be Team Jesus. I'm with you. We're on the same team. And I choose to go to organized religion, and you come sometimes and you don't other times, and either one is fine. You're on Team Jesus, right? Yep, so am I. And there's a song that that he said to me, and I'm like, yeah, dude, I want the same thing. And there's a song that is a primary song. I'm trying to be like Jesus. Mm-hmm. He's like, at my funeral, that's what I want sung. I don't care really what else is said. And I don't care what church it's in, but I want that song sung at my funeral. I was like, yeah, dude, wow. I thought a lot about that. I don't think he thought that was so impactful to me, but it was. And I was like, you know what? Me too. I stand all amazed, and I'm trying to be like Jesus. Those are the songs that are going to be sung at my funeral. If anybody knows me or gets to know me, what I want them to feel when I come into a room is that guy's got the light of Christ in him, and he's a good person. I'm actually building a sales training course right now, and I do a whole 2 sections on being a good person. Humans are good, and be a good human. And I taught this to a company, and the guy, after me just ripping it out, this is what it's about, and this is who you got to be, and people buy from people that are good, and you want to be good because people don't buy from bad people. And I just kind of was given it, and that guy stopped at the end. He was like, so what you're trying to say is like, be like Jesus? And I was like, yeah, that is actually what I'm trying to say. I'm trying to be like Jesus, and I'm trying to tell you to be like Jesus too. And he's like, okay, got it. And then we went on to the next thing, but I hadn't had anybody in this training course, or as I've trained these different salespeople, stop point blank and be like, all you're trying to do is just be like Jesus, like point it out so much. And I hadn't really also thought about that, but that is actually 100% what I'm trying to do and what I'm trying to teach. To go be a good human. Mm-hmm. Go be like what Jesus would be. I just got hit on Father's Day. I got hit by a guy. I was driving my car and I got hit, and I didn't explode, and I got mad a little bit, and I had my kids in the car. I was like so calm and so peaceful about the whole thing that I was even surprised a little. And I thanked God. And I even said to the guy, and he was like, thanks for not being, it was totally his fault. I was like rolling up to a stop sign. He came around the corner really fast, hit me. And I won a Tesla a couple years ago. So it's a Tesla. It's an expensive car to fix. It's got all the bells and whistles. And I could be really, really mad about this thing. But he's like, thanks for being really calm. I was like, yeah, I'm grateful that God is letting me be really calm about all this, because it wouldn't do me any good. You're a dad. Yeah. I'm a dad. It's Father's Day. For me to yell at you and say you did all these bad things and you got to take care of all these things. I mean, that's why we have insurance, right? And I was so grateful that God allowed me to have a really calm, Jesus-like response. And maybe Jesus would have done more things. Oh, and then my daughters are so sweet. We got them out of the car, and they picked some flowers and they gave them to me for me. And I was like, go give some to him, as he was like about ready to leave. My cute little daughters are being like Jesus.
Oh, man.
And they're going to give him this guy that feels horrible. His wife was yelling at him because he just hit me, and now that's going to mess up their insurance. And he's an older guy, and he'd spent time with his kids, and they were just trying to go to dinner. Yeah. But she's yelling at him. And then my sweet little girls give this guy 2 flowers as he's leaving and say, Happy Father's Day. And I was so proud. They wanted to give it to me. But when I also then pointed out, hey, he's a dad too, they were so happy to like, yeah, let me go give that to them or to him. And that was special. So I wanted to share that experience of being in this area where I was a minority and I felt judged for being on Team Jesus and for being loud and proud about it. And not everybody associated necessarily with me on that. But throughout that, the few days that we were together, I did have multiple people come up to me and say, hey, I love that you love this so much, that this is such a part of you. And not only do I hear you say it, but I see you doing what a good Christian should do, right? You're helping here, and you're taking care of this, and you know what I mean? And then to train guys about being a good human and humans are good. And we should always act this kind of way to people because they're going to act that way back to us. And they're going to want to buy from you if you're a good person. And then a guy just stopped me in my tracks. So you're just trying to say, be like Jesus. Yes, that's exactly what I'm trying to say.
Dude, thank you so much for sharing that. I think that's incredibly beautiful. And I love that you illustrated that your attempt to follow Christ truly like changed you in a stressful situation where the natural man would have got mad and felt animosity towards this man. And it turned out to be a beautiful experience because Christ does change us. The final thing I want to ask you is for our fellow brothers out there that may be struggling or not feeling close to Christ, would you tell them what would happen to their lives if they got closer to Christ?
Yeah. So anybody that isn't close now or is close now, the abundance of Jesus, the abundance of God, again, you could call him Allah,
right,
if you want to call him Allah. The abundance of God is so great, and there's so much more there that he has available to you and open to you if your heart is open to it. My wife and I were blessed to go to the Holy Land. We went to Jerusalem and went around there. And I remember being on the Sea of Galilee and talking with my wife and just saying, there's so much more here and about God that we have in any scripture. Because we have you compile it all, it's like a few days or a few weeks worth of actual events. There's so much more that we don't know about that he wants to give us. There's so much more love. There's so much more. Again, you could be a pinnacle of whatever person or whatever religious leader that you are. There's more. There's more out there. You could be at the bottom of the barrel. I'm having the worst experience of my life. I'm struggling with addiction. I lost $500,000. Whatever, right? You could be at the bottom of the barrel of everything, and there's more there for you. One of my favorite scriptures in the Bible is 1 Corinthians 3:6, probably because it's really short. It says, I have planted, Apollos watered, but God gave the increase. Part of my job, if I have planted and watered, part of my job is to show up and do some work. Every single time, though, God gives the increase. Every time. And if we can recognize that we need to do something, that could be I step inside a church. That could be I say, Heavenly Father. It could be whatever, right? Whatever level you're at, it requires some effort on our part. But if you give a little bit, God's going to give the increase every time. It's not, I have planted, Apollos watered, and God sometimes gives you when he wants. No, I have planted, Apollos watered, and God gave the increase every time that happens. So it doesn't matter how big or small your faith is right now. It doesn't matter where you're at right now. If you give a little, he's going to give you an increase. And I believe that the more you recognize the increase and show gratitude for the increase, then more increase comes. It's a little magnifying glass. You show gratitude for that. It's like, oh, he appreciated that. Just like my kids. If I give my kids something, they're like, Dad, I really appreciate that. Like, I'm going to give you another one.
Yeah.
Get
ready. It's happening again.
versus like taking it for granted, So wherever you're at, small, big, anywhere along the line, you do your little part and have faith that God's going to give the increase because he does every time. And then recognize it. Make sure you pause and recognize it, that this was a God increase, not a my increase. And then he'll give you more.
I second that. Dude, I'm so glad we reconnected after, 12, 13 years. And thank you for being so courageous in your testimony of Christ. It's strengthened me, and I know it'll strengthen others, and appreciate you being here, brother.
You got it. Thanks for having me, man.
If you like this episode, make sure you subscribe. And if you're looking for more ways to include God throughout your day, check out some of my recent music I created in partnership with Skylight. Link in the description.